Okay. I don't see any Jeff, but we are live. So let's go ahead and open up our meeting here. It is 7:03. This is a meeting of the Commissioners of Poolesville. And today is, what is today? Today is the 15th. I can't believe it. November 15th, 2021. Ed, would you like to say the pledge for us this evening?
All right, it might help if I unmute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag of the United States.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Liberty, justice for all. Thank you. Okay, great. All right. So I still don't see Jeff unless just missing it.
You want me to send him a text,
Oh,
Carrie?
I see it. I see him. I see him.
Okay.
So now we're moving on to our commissioner announcements, committee reports. First of all, thanks to Martin for jumping in and facilitating last meeting. I had a family emergency, and so thanks for that, taking care of things last minute there. Appreciate it. So I wanted to let everybody know, I'm sure everyone has already heard about our D15 delegate, Kathleen Dumais, who's taking a judgeship, which is fantastic for her. And there are a number of people who are interested in being appointed to her seat now. So there's going to be a town hall Zoom on November 22nd. That's at 7 p.m. Where I think there's at least 3 or 4 folks who are throwing their hat into the ring. So folks want to tune in to that. November 8th was last week. I went over to Board of Education and gave testimony on the CIP and the state of where we're at with Poolesville High School. I think between myself, Link Hoeing, the chair of our Fair Access Committee, and then David Griffith, who is the PTA leader for the high school. I think we really had a good, clear message, specifically about getting this gym built, and hoping that will be part of the plan. Thanks to Kevin Schramm, who and to Foundry, our PR firm, who helped me put together my slides. Kevin especially, because he had put together some really nice images of other high school gyms that had recently, within about the last 10 years, been renovated. And it was really nice to kind of see the difference between those. And then, of course, the gym that we currently have at PHS, which, we all call the new gym, and it's 45 years old. But that was a good evening, and we did get a nod from Shebra Evans on the board. as well as Judy Daca. So that was nice to see for Poolesville. I was involved in a recent ag reserve tour with it was a nice group. Craig Rice's office, council member Craig Rice, some of his staffers were there. There were, it was basically a group of various municipal leaders. There was someone from the Rockville City Council, Gaithersburg City Council, and there was actually a few folks from Prince George's County as well. And then our own Bob Sissel went on the tour, and it was definitely very enlightening to kind of talk about ag today, new challenges, agritourism, and it was just it was a great chance to talk about how we're all continuing to protect the ag reserve and how important it is. White's Ferry. I did actually put White's Ferry on our agenda tonight as an agenda item, but I guess we could just go ahead and talk about it now. I think, as everyone knows, the joint Loudoun County, Montgomery County study came out on Veterans Day, actually. And Loudoun County supervisors released it, which was exactly what we had anticipated was going to happen. If anybody is interested in giving it a read, it is 140 pages, but it's not a difficult read. It's actually pretty interesting, especially the parts that talk about ways that could make the ferry system more efficient. So the important part is that tomorrow night, the Loudoun County supervisors will be having their regular business meeting. And that's in person, and they're also streaming. And I know that we've been blasting out everywhere on social media that folks should go if they can, should get online if they can, and watch it. It's definitely, I don't personally anticipate any action being taken tomorrow night, but it will definitely be really interesting to see what our friends across the river have to say about it there with that county supervisors. And then Wednesday night is also another chance for our county folks in Montgomery County. Montgomery County DOT is going to hold a forum, and that's going to be virtual. Again, folks can sign up to ask questions, and it would be great for a lot of people to tune into that as well. You know, I mean, there's so many ins and outs to this, but of course, at the end of the day, the whole crux of the situation rests on that small piece of land. That's the landing on the Virginia side. So I think this is going to be a big week to see where we're at with White's Ferry. And I'm sure the rest of you have some things to say about that, but I'll just leave it at that. Holiday lighting is on December 3rd. That's from 6 to 8. Turn on all the lights. I heard that Santa may even come off from the fire engine and maybe help us flip the lights. So I don't know, that might be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I don't know if Santa's going to need like a special booster or something in order to do that, but that should be neat. Our economic development committee will meet when our town manager is out this week, but when he gets back, they should be meeting, and I really appreciate Tony stepping in with that committee and sharing his vast expertise in the area of economic development. Congrats to, we have a new business in town, open their doors on Saturday, the Sweet Lemon over there next to Hope Garden. And thanks to the chamber for putting on a good ribbon cutting last Friday as well. And then I wanted to just say my own congrats. I know this ended last month, but I wanted to say my own congrats to Historic Medley District for putting on the ghost tours last month. And they even had to postpone one of them due to the weather, but it still ended up being great. So appreciated that. I wanted to say a huge thanks to the scouts who did the scouting for food drive. It's just such an amazing effort that they do every year. And I think people really look forward to it now. And so it's much appreciated. Thanks to everyone that's involved with that. And then lastly, I just wanted to mention Community Farm Share, which is another fantastic organization in our midst, a pretty new organization run by Jenny Freeman. And she's going to be celebrating her first year of that organization's existence over at Locals this coming Saturday at 11. That's everything for me. Martin, would you like to go next? Oh, it's gone. There
Yeah, happy to. So the Planning Commission met this past Wednesday, last Wednesday, and there's a couple things on the agenda. We discussed giving Gary Hartz an extension for his subdivision that he's looking to do, and he was given an extension for, John, what was it, a year?
Year and a half.
Year and a half, yeah. We discussed the master plan a little bit. The Poolesville seniors came and gave us an excellent presentation. I know I learned a lot about the things that they, the input they wanted to give for the master plan, the things they hope to see. And they had some really excellent suggestions and a really well thought out presentation, which we've gotten a lot of good information from all the stakeholders that we've invited to give us input. And the big thing we discussed was Wallace Montgomery was there in person, and they had sort of given us like a first draft of the questions, the survey questions, and it was really, really well thought out. They did a lot of work, and there were some great questions, and then some of them we had a really good discussion, and some of the Planning Commission members tweak some of those questions, ask them to tweak some of those questions, ask them to, change some of the wording, change some of the ways that you answer them. And so they're going to bring back another draft of that. And once it gets a little further along, I'll ask Tony to send you all a copy. At this point, it's still a little on the rough side, I think. But it's going to be a really good survey. It's going to be a really well thought out, comprehensive survey. So that's the master plan planning continues to, I don't want to say creep along, but we're starting to move it at a decent pace now. And so that's where that is. And that's pretty much what we discussed. Any questions?
Martin, what was the name of the development that's going to get a year and a half extension? I didn't write it down quickly enough.
Gary Hartz.
Gary Hart, where is that? Is that?
That's down on Fisher Avenue as you come into town. There's a sign that says Hartz Manor or something like that, and he's got a pond in his yard. It's very close to the. So there's that field on the left, and the development's going to be over on the left. Am I right, John?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
It's not a really huge development. I think it's 8 homes or.
That's correct.
Yeah, and this was approved 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. It was a while ago.
They're currently hung up in going through state. Well, they had finally got a meeting with the state, and getting state highway involved was the big headache.
Yeah. So, any other questions? Going once, going twice. Back to you, Carrie.
Nice. All right, Jeff, you want to continue on?
Sure. I got to get my notes over here. So we had our Parks Board meeting on the 3rd of November, and we had a follow-up on the farmer's market. And there was an interest, I believe the Parks Board is going to send a question over to the commissioners regarding, will the commissioners allow the sale of alcohol to be permitted at the farmer's market? I know that when we do what was that thing called? The Oktoberfest or something, right? And there's like alcohol there. But anyway, so the Parks Board did some looking into that, and they said the Maryland state license regulation allows for samples of alcohol to be provided, right? And then I guess you take the sample, and if you like it, you purchase the bottle or something. And the sample, however, the size of the sample and the number of the samples is limited. So each sample can only be 1/4 of an ounce, so it's quite small. And then each person can only have 4 samples, so that adds up to 1 ounce. So anyway, I think the Parks Board is going to bump that up to the commissioners to see if they're going to permit the sale of alcohol at the farmer's market. But that won't be until, of course, next spring. And they're also looking into the insurance that might be required for the distilleries to participate in the farmer's market. Then there was also a discussion by some very helpful folks, Michelle Riley and Dog Park Rules, Kevin, I got the names wrong. Anyway, so there was a lot of discussion about the dog park rules and the updated set of dog park rules. So dog park was built in 2016, and the rules are posted on the dog park itself. And I'll just read you really quickly what the suggestions are for the updated, they were voted approved by the Parks Board. So no aggressive dogs or behavior. Dogs should be removed from the park immediately upon showing any signs of aggression towards people or other dogs. Another one, dogs must be current on standard vaccinations, including rabies and DHPP, Bordetella, canine influenza, Lyme, and several other things. Another new rule is dogs must display identification, a current license, and rabies vaccination tags. Another new rule is dog handlers must be 18 or over, so no young children. A new rule: no dogs over 35 pounds are allowed in the small dog side of the dog park. Large dogs, the large dog park at owner's discretion and with consent from the other dogs in the park. Sorry, the dog owners in the park. Yeah. So yeah, that would be weird. Dogs should not share water. So you also may have seen in the recent Monocle, Dr. Eag's article about that. So it was quite timely. Anyway, dogs should not share the water because of health reasons. And I think there was some discussion about, people do leave their water bowls there from day to day instead of taking them home each night. So, and I know Preston apparently routinely goes and collects up the water bowls and takes them out. And then when an owner comes to retrieve it, he gives them back. So, yeah. So anyway, Preston's doing a lot of work there, trying to keep everything organized and clean. So owners are highly recommended to bring their water for their own dog and not share it. And then all dog park gates must be closed immediately after entering and exiting the park. So this was written up and nicely presented, and then it was approved by the Parks Board. So that took quite a while. And the Parks Board recommends to the commissioners to adopt the new and updated rules as written. So that's this. Yes, and then as I sent an email, because the Parks Board folks and I, quite agree with everything that's said, they were very much in agreement that the holiday lighting event should continue in its full flavor, right? So they made a motion and it passed, and then I sent an email to everybody on the screen here, notifying everybody that the Parks Board recommends proceed with the holiday lighting event. And of course, we are proceeding with the holiday lighting event, and might be a slightly smaller scale, but it will happen. So that is my report.
Back to the dog park issue. I've always wondered, John, maybe you can speak to this. What would it take for us to get an actual water source there? Because it is, not only is it a problem for the the reasons that Jeff just outlined, I mean, it just looks terrible. I mean, it's just there's just a lot of trash there.
Okay, to get the water source there, we'd have to go out to the main, which is out in, it's on the other side by the townhouses, and bring it across. But the other problem becomes is that you have to, it's a matter of storage of water, because you don't want just water standing
Right.
in a trough, if you will.
Right.
So it is an issue, but yeah, I mean, we can give a quick price kind of look at it, but you'd have to saw cut the road and bring it across and make a tap that way. We looked at sewer also out there, because at one time that was going to be a possible place for a community center. So.
Right. Yeah, because it would be nice to at least have like I mean, not a whole trough, but like a spigot that, folks.
Yeah, you'd put in a frost-free spigot there. Yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. Jim, you want to go ahead?
So what I'd like to do is come back to the White's Ferry update as per the meeting agenda under old business, because we have some more questions. But the rest of fair access is the usual focus on gaining where we need to get to in terms of having the gym proper size, as well as the athletic fields prepared properly. So we're always working on that, and that's got its own path as we go forward over the next couple of weeks. And we're hoping that we'll be able to meet again directly with Seth Adams, the director of construction. He's the one that's kind of juggling the balls in the air. And we've also, the basic feeling amongst the Fair Access Committee is that we're going to be approaching our council members and potentially not just Mark Elbridge, but other candidates as well, to see how they feel about fully funding and making sure that it's fully funded in terms of the school build out the way it's supposed to be. And also their commitment to a community center, potentially putting a bubble on the pool, et cetera. The Fair Access Committee has a whole list of initiatives that are going to be pressing issues for the candidates that are coming up over the next year up until election time. As everybody knows, this is when we like to try to extract promises from elected officials and people and politicians. We can come back to this, but these are kind of issues that we're talking about, not necessarily in fair access, and maybe we can talk into it under old business. But I did have several residents ask me, I guess just because I'm on fair access, how can they join the Economic Development Committee? And I'm not sure what's our proper protocol for asking to join that. We've had several business owners approach me on it. So it doesn't have to be answered now, but people are wondering how that can happen. Or what the committee is doing, or are there minutes? Have people actually met? What direction is that committee going? Because I think several of the business owners are very concerned about the not just the direction of the town, but how can they participate and maybe make things better. So that's something that I think that we have to answer at one point or another. On that ag tour you mentioned, I'm not sure if that was just exclusively offered to you, Carrie, but that's something I would have liked to have gone on or had it offered to the commissioners. So maybe it was just for the presidents, but that's something that I would have loved to have been a part of. So if we do run across those opportunities again, I'd like to be a part of that if we can, or at least have the commissioners have that extended to them. So that I would like to, if that's possible. Anything that you get offered that might be of interest to the other commissioners, we should probably hear about it so that we can have the opportunity to join or participate or decline. I also want to ask about that we had 2 new organizations that were proposed and voted on to be explored further, and has any action taken place on those organizations? And I know, Carrie, you had one, and Ed, you had another one. Is there anything new or anything to report on those organizations? Have they met? Have they been formed? Where are we?
I think those are good questions for when Tony gets back.
Okay, so we're relying on Tony to put those together?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have offered to help, and I know Ed has as well. I mean, if anyone is interested in helping with those, that's definitely a good idea so that we don't put all of the work on our staff creating new committees.
Right.
But
mean,
yeah, I mean, definitely it's definitely a staff role moving it forward.
I would think it would be more a commissioner and a volunteer thing, but if I'm still willing to wait for Tony to come back to get an update, that's fine by me.
Yeah, hey, I would
Go
say
ahead. Thanks, Ed.
with some of the student piece, the one we talked about, it's Tony did try to reach out to me. We've had some calendar conflicts. And so after this week, I had some times that frees up with the time and all. So for that.
Okay. I just want to hear more. We talked about it. We approved something, and it just,
Yeah, we need to.
I hate to see stuff die on the vine. So, and I'm obviously there, people think these, the committees are worthwhile. So we need to be explored. We need to have them be explored. And last but not least, Martin, on the Planning Commission, what do you think about giving us or somehow getting us a much more detailed versus us having to watch all the meetings, because we could just watch the meetings, I guess, but like a much more detailed progress report on the master plan, including some give and take with potentially Brian, and having some sort of presentation that's more than just your, few minutes about what you guys have been up to. I really, frankly, besides watching the meetings, I don't have a clue what we're up to with it. And I'd like to hear more. And I know you guys are doing good work. So it's something I'd like to hear more on if possible, maybe something more detailed. It's such an important master plan, such an important situation for the town that I think that we should all be much more up to snuff on it if possible. And maybe I'm the only one that's missing the boat. So I'd like to hear more and kind of get whatever it is it a midterm or a first quarter? Where are we and what are we doing? So,
well, I can tell you right now where we are. I mean, like at this point, we've heard from, I think, most of the stakeholders that we've invited. And like I said tonight, we've just sort of gotten our feet wet with the questions for the survey. And that's pretty much all we've done at this point. Now, we can invite Brian here and we can have a discussion with both of us, as to like where we're at. But probably something like that might be a little more appropriate once we're a little further along. And like I said, once those questions, the survey questions are a little further along, like they're still like a little bit rough draft. But once we get them back from Wallace Montgomery, I'll have those sent to you so you can just, if you're curious, you can look at them. But
okay, yeah, that'd be great. I don't want to interfere in any way. I just want to hear more. That's all.
Yeah, and there's a great if you I know nobody has a lot of time to watch meetings, but if you watch the discussion at the last meeting, it was excellent. It was a really good, like a really good discussion, and like really great. I mean, it's a great group of planning commissioners, great questions, and yeah. So
I know we got a good bunch.
Let me know if you want me to invite Brian, and we can give you like a more thorough update, or
well, how about if we all watch the last meeting, and then maybe we can all talk about it at our next meeting.
Sure.
And then and make sure that whatever questions any of us may have, we can kind of put them
Happy
to
to
you.
answer them, yeah.
And if Brian wants to chime in, that's fine. But I'm sure you got it covered. So,
Cool.
and I do have a question for you too on that. Is there going to be, have you guys engaged again? And I hate to be the broken record, engaged with the commercial strip owners as far as the process, or is that on the agenda at least to be part of the process coming in?
We have not heard, I don't think we've gotten we've gotten like an economic development committee input. I don't think we've engaged with the strip owners specifically, but let me check with Brian and see if he even invited them or not. I'm not sure about that.
I'm just,
like I said,
I'm
we have
noodling it.
development input, but I don't think strip owners.
This is a topic for another night, and we don't have to talk about it now. But my concern is long distance is that we have to have the drumbeat of development still taking place, because I think we have some pretty severe budget restrictions down the line if we don't pay attention to, designating areas, talking about how development will take place. I know this is all part of your master plan discussion. And I think that part of that discussion is what is going to specifically say, just for example, any of the commercial strip center areas could potentially be redeveloped one day. None of them are new. The Magruder Center is where Duncan is relatively new. But the strip center where Tractor Supply is not new. Certainly the strip center where Papadopoulos is, where the, where Dr. Eags' business in the library is definitely not new. And we have a big section of the Donegan property that's out there behind CVS that I think is ripe for discussion about internal development one day versus potentially staying commercial. So I would, whenever the appropriate time is with your group, I think that those things need to be part of our long-term discussion about how they fit into the master plan, because they could all easily not be commercial centers, or they could be redeveloped, or they could be re-imaged in what a modern day commercial strip center looks like.
Okay, I'll bring that up for sure.
I mean, on a base level, you can be used for, and whoever is running the economic development committee and whatever the inputs coming in from it, that it could be used to talk about on a really base level, rents, vacancies, how they fill them, et cetera. What do they see for the future? But on the big term, it could be, how do those get redeveloped if we're really building a 10-year master plan? Do we see all those strip centers being there in 10 years? Well, we probably do. But,
Yeah.
How could they be reimagined? And what does that mean potentially for Donegan right there in the middle of it, with probably the most important piece of real estate we have in Poolesville?
Yep.
So
Okay.
Thank you for taking my input. I appreciate it.
Sure. No, I'll take that back to the planning commission.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
That's it. That was an extended fair access commentary. Thank you.
Can I make a comment on Jim's comment? Can I make a comment on Jim's comment?
Yeah, go, Jeff.
Well, one of them had to do with the Economic Development Committee that you mentioned, and I've had two people, one of them being Tom Kettler, and he's the president of the Poolesville PACC, the Poolesville Area Chamber of Commerce. And he apparently he asked to be part of the Economic Development Committee and was somehow turned down. So I think that needs to be revisited. I'm not sure who the people are that are doing that, but I would like to find out and maybe have a discussion with them. And then also another business, a very prominent business owner in town, apparently had the same reaction. So this doesn't quite add up. So anyway, their input is vital, I believe. So yeah, we need to find out who the Economic Development Committee is and just chat with them to understand their their decisions. Do you know who that is, Jim?
I don't. No, I know.
So far, it's really been a fledgling group that I had gathered, honestly, pre-COVID, and this past year we have been starting to get more organized. With hiring Tony, he's really been starting to bring his own expertise and input to the group. As far as I understand, no one's been turned away, but we definitely need to get more organized, just in terms of putting out a call for folks, deciding what the overall goals are of the committee. Another reason why it's really good to have Tony involved. But all of these things, I think, one of the reasons why I've been trying to do a call for agenda items about a week in advance is so that we can get these things on our agenda ahead of time, because we could definitely have staff, ready to discuss these things and have a plan moving forward. So, I think these are all good things for discussion. It just probably would maybe make more sense for us to be discussing them before our business meeting, since they're not part of our agenda tonight.
So let's do it. I guess it's my turn now. I haven't had the
okay.
So
Go for it, Ed.
Yeah, no problem. First, in terms of updates, Sustainable Poolesville, we haven't met since our last meeting. We're scheduled to meet on the 24th. Right now, we're still scheduled. We'll see if we're going to meet or not. But then just piggybacking on the fair access, one of the things, it's had a chance just to look at some of the things that Link he's been gathering information, feedback, because Link's scheduled to speak tomorrow in Leesburg. And so I think that's important. I think he's in the 6 o'clock hour, and just really focus I had a chance to read through his comments that he's going to make. And I'm gonna pull it up for a second just to look at it. But his focus is really looking at that impact on Poolesville right now, and why it's so important to get the ferry open as soon as possible. I think that's something perhaps for all of us to be able to. I think it's real important for all of us to speak with that one voice. Where I think it would be good for everyone to be in the loop with the messages that are going to be sent, the messages that we're sending. And then as we're looking at that master plan and we're looking at an economic development committee, just making sure that all of it is flowing in the same direction. And so perhaps we need to look at maybe a couple of agenda items for our next meeting. So I'd like to put on the agenda just a little bit more in-depth update on the master plan, Martin, because I think what you talked about having Brian come out, you got some stakeholder input. It would be helpful for me just to if Buck could maybe put together a couple of slides and say, hey, these are some of the stakeholder groups that we've heard from. Here are some bulleted items that are really important to these particular groups. We have a survey coming up, and so just talking about that, and then so we could share, this is where we've been, this is where we are, this is where we're going, this is that overarching time frame. That would be helpful. And then when we look at just tying some of the advocacy work together between what we're doing at the Fair Access Committee and then what we might be able to do in our roles as commissioners to help support the advocacy of bringing resources here to Poolesville. And so it's to see here. I don't know, did you guys get a chance? I don't know if all of you got a chance to see what Link is going to share tomorrow. Did you guys get a chance to see what Link's going to share tomorrow?
And I don't think I received it.
All right, I'll reach out to. I'm trying to pull it up. I was just looking at it,
Okay.
but I
He
know
sent
that.
some copy around earlier.
Yeah, and because I know we have. So there's the Tuesday meeting in Virginia, and then there's the Wednesday piece. We all saw that email.
Yeah.
But I think it's so important that we have that united voice of advocacy in terms of how we're going to be affected here in Poolesville. And so I'm looking at what Link has shared with the Fair Access Committee, and just I'm sure he wouldn't mind sharing that with everybody else. But when I did get a chance to read over the study, and I think for me, just the bottom line is that we're every day that ferry's not open, we're missing out on that traffic that comes back and forth, and that affects the economics within our region. And I think that I love to hear what the impact on that the ferry being closed has on those who are trying to lease out spaces in that strip mall. Because I'm concerned about that BB&T space, and I'm concerned about I was over there yesterday, just looking at the vacancies next to the library, and then with the library being closed for renovation, if you were a new business and you wanted to go there, what would be the incentive or the encouragement to rent out one of those spaces right now? Or if I was looking at renting out some of those other vacancies at the other strip malls, not knowing, and if the owners of the strip malls aren't in the loop or are part of the discussions of what we're doing, how can they respond to prospects who are thinking about bringing a business? It's great that, and so I think we all should go out and support Katie's business. She's local, but there might be other people who might be considering Poolesville, but they might put those plans on hold, not really knowing what's happening with the ferry. So there's just some things to talk about, but I'll go ahead now and say, can we put on the agenda for the next meeting? Just an update, if Tony could come in and share process I'm listening to what was said earlier. So perhaps share the process that we use for those who are interested to join that Economic Development Committee. I'll commit to catching up with Tony before our next meeting so that we can have more structure for the things that those other two committees.
Sounds good.
The only thing I'm going to add to that, Ed, is that
Yeah.
I think that I'm not sure how we strayed away from this, but normally these committees and the structuring of the committees doesn't fall on the shoulders of the town manager. It is actually on the shoulders, and the town manager can help organize, but it's on the shoulders of the commissioners and whatever sort of coalition the commissioners can put together that would not just create the committee. Tony can provide structure, but the commissioners have to actually do the hard work and the legwork to create the committee, develop the people that are going to be on it potentially initially, and then figure out a way that it gets legs where the committee lasts beyond the initial group of people that organize it. Otherwise, there really isn't a committee. So I'm hopeful that, it sounds like we're already putting a lot on Tony just to say that when you come back, dude, help us organize these committees that we voted on, that we potentially can approve or fund, that we need to have that, that it's not really on the town manager to do that. The town manager can facilitate, but he is not going to be the one that creates. So I know we can look for him to structure. Let's put it that way.
So it sounds like more of a collaboration.
More of a collaboration, definitely.
Okay. So if we're done with commissioner reports, I think I got everybody. We are now on to approval of minutes from November 1st. Does anyone have any discussion or changes to those minutes from November 1st? Would anyone like to make a motion to adopt the minutes?
So Jeff, I make a motion, we approve the minutes of November 1st, 2021 Commissioner meeting.
And I'll second Jeff's motion.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ed.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I'll abstain because I was not there. Public comment is next. Do we have anyone joining us? I don't see anyone. So then now we're on to old business. The only thing we have on old business is the White's Ferry update. Were there things that Jim or Ed wanted to add, or anyone?
I have something I want to say.
Yeah.
And that is, this might be a little difficult. So I have a kind of a growing concern regarding the ownership of our regional issue, specifically White's Ferry. And my understanding is that the Fair Access Committee, their mandate is to advocate for the equal and fair access for the entire up-county region. Not only Poolesville, but the entire up-county area. But recently I've seen, well, yeah, I'll just be upfront here. Recently I've seen Commissioner Cook. It doesn't seem like you've been working through the Fair Access Committee, but remember, Commissioner Jim Brown and Commissioner Ed Reed, they are the representatives on the Fair Access Committee from the Commissioners Board. So things should be organized and coordinated through Link, through Jim Brown, through Commissioner Brown, through Commissioner Ed Reed, through Kevin Schramm, and those folks. And I don't see that happening. So, yeah. So the Fair Access Committee, they've done a wonderful job pushing forward for the high school, pushing forward for a new gym, knock on wood on that, a community center, knock on wood again, right? And they have properly taken on the role of advocating for the up-county region and the reopening of White's Ferry. And as Commissioner Ed Reed just stated, that we need to have a single voice and a unified message, not from different people, but all coming through one point, and that being the Fair Access Committee. So I think we need to get on board with that. And, as and I'll make another quote from Commissioner Ed Reed, we are all 20%, right? No one is more than 20%. So I would like to suggest that the Fair Access Committee is the home for many issues, including White's Ferry, and the other commissioners, and I'll put myself in the same boat, right? We should not be kind of going around them. Yeah, so I wanted to get that off my mind. I think that's, I see emails and different things. I got text messages today that things aren't always coordinated, and that's concerning because this is really important and we don't want to go off with contrary messages. That's what I wanted to add.
Well, I think that I'm not totally sure exactly what you're getting at, but I think that like it's perfectly acceptable for a commissioner to go out and do their own individual like lobbying or like trying to use their contacts or whatever like that. I think overall we need a unified message, but I doubt that Commissioner Cook or anyone else is going out and like lobbying for something that Fair Access isn't already lobbying for. Now, so I don't see the problem with like concurrent efforts personally.
Yeah, I already said my piece, but it mixes the message, and then you don't know who to listen to.
But how is it mixing the message if someone's out there trying to get White's Ferry open, for example? In the Fair Access, I mean, it could be looked at as mixing the message, but it's also redundancy. I mean, like it's like attacking it from different angles, isn't it?
Well, you want it to be, but it may not always be the case, Martin. And so yeah.
If it's a completely different message, that's a problem. I agree. Yeah, I would agree with that. But if it's just basically the same message from a different angle, I don't think that's a problem personally.
Well, I have text messages from the folks from some specific people, and they are expressing concern, right? And they're not on this meeting, so I kind of feel it's up to me to say something. Yeah, I'm not trying to slap anybody's hands, but if we can all work together and feed whatever information through Commissioner Jim Brown and Commissioner Ed Reed and Link and those guys, and they've done it, like I'm just repeating myself now. They've done an excellent job. This is their thing and they need to run with it. And we need to trust and that they're doing a good job. And I certainly believe that they are.
So not to interject, and I appreciate the commentary, Jeff. The only thing I would say is, Martin, to respond to you, is that I know that there's been some communications between Link and Laura Van Eperen to talk about media, as well as Carrie today, and trying to kind of get coalesce around what type of media strategy might need to take place, specifically for tomorrow night's get together and then Wednesday night's get together. And, you can see what we posted on Facebook from Fair Access, trying to talk about the bus and give some definition of what we want to potentially do tomorrow night. But I will say that we need to have it is better to have one voice. And I'm not really sure that we know exactly, like if Carrie, if you have something that you've submitted in writing, I think today was the deadline for tomorrow's testimony, that's probably something that we should see. And I think that we've sent you ours, but even if we haven't, we need to, and we still have time. Tomorrow is tomorrow. But I'm not sure if you sent something into them or not. And Martin, to your point, I think Fair Access, I mean, we've been noodling this all day today, and that's not just two of us or three of us, it's the entire committee with a lot of feedback back and forth, is potentially talking about stepping up starting tomorrow and more or less demanding that the ferry get reopened immediately, and that the two counties potentially contribute immediately to what might be a 50 cents per car increase, and pay that to Virginia to get the ferry open now. That's not something that I don't believe that's probably in Carrie's testimony or anybody's plan for Tuesday or Wednesday, but that's something that we're pretty heavily discussing. That would probably be, if Carrie was on board with it, I'm not saying she's not, that become part of her message for tomorrow or the next day, but that information just needs to be shared. So we don't know what Carrie's presentation is going to look like tomorrow night. If we don't hear, or there was nothing submitted in writing, we're still going to go forward with whatever we move forward with. But I can see this being that it's the one voice thing is really needs to be one voice, because say, for instance, Carrie could give 3 minutes of plan part one of what we're talking about. And the and also too, she could be representing the commissioners, although we don't really know what her testimony is. I would think that if you're representing the commissioners of the town, that we'll get a copy of it some way, shape, or form. But if it was coordinated, we could have 3 minutes from Carrie on part A, and then we could have 3 minutes from Link on part B, where the testimony is all coordinated and gets the most bang for the buck. So to answer your question, that's how I see it could be better than either private citizen Carrie or President Carrie going and giving testimony without us really knowing what she's going to say, but we know she's going to be on message for, getting White's Ferry reopened. So I hope
Well,
that
yeah, I would agree especially for something like public testimony that it makes sense to all be on the same page. I thought Jeff was just talking about Carrie taking meetings independently of fair access, whatever. And I personally don't think that's a problem if the message is somewhat unified. But anyway.
Well, and the message may not be unified here because Carrie's been involved with a study that we haven't been involved with. She's had meetings with the people that are, the David Fraser Dago and the group that I kind of got pushed out of, and that's fine because I don't have enough time to do it anyway. But if they have, that when that group was put together, it was peaceful. Let's let the two MDOTs, the Maryland and Virginia Department of Transportation put together this study. But I think that, we've been studied for 3 months in addition to the ferry being shut down for almost a year. And it's okay, we're really probably going to end up not being peaceful about this. We're going to be pushing for action. So, again, we need to, Jeff's overall message is one voice. This one kind of got taken out of Fair Access's hands, but we're still going to go forth with it, and we may be advocating for something a little heavier than what's been talked about. And Ed, I don't know how you feel about that or not. I haven't been.
I'll go back and say, well, I shared the email from a link that he sent to the Fair Access Committee, so you can see his testimony. I think a couple of things that's coming out of our discussion here is that it's important that we all spend some time together just with developing our strategy, making sure that everybody is on that same page, because there will be times where each different people will be able to speak to different influencers to help move the ball along. I think that a unified message is really important. What are those salient points? I think that breakfast that we had on Poolesville Day was a great example of different people speaking, sharing key points. Everyone's on the same page, but in terms of advocacy, I thought that was a good thing that we did. I think as we continue to move forward, it's just a matter of perhaps as a commission, we need to block out some time where we're really looking over some of those strategies. And we need to go back. I'm just thinking too, one of the things we need to go back and do is spend some time looking at what are going to be those priorities. It's not for right now, but we do need to get a date where we can block out time and look at our commissioner priorities as a group and then move on those things. So I think it's great that we got Tony, not Tom, we got Tony. And so now we can put that to rest and then move on to this whole business of commissioning and looking at what are going to be these priorities for the year, and what are some things that we're doing well, what are some things that need to be improved. Perhaps we could do this a SWOT analysis, our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, so that we can really bring value to the work.
Yeah, so I'll just say from my perspective, because I have been involved with this kind of Maryland delegation of county and states and federal, Trone's office has been involved as well, really for the past year, regarding White's Ferry. There is, I think that our overall message from Poolesville, from the town of Poolesville, is fairly in line, but it probably is taking a little bit of a different bent from the Fair Access Committee. And I have been in contact with Laura Van Eperen and with Link about our messaging. But I think that in some ways, this is an opportunity for there to be a little bit of tension between the town and fair access that will actually benefit us. This is actually a conversation that I had with Link recently. It's part of the conversation that we've had in the past about should fair access actually be a separate entity from the town. I mean, there's strengths in it being a part of the town, but there's also some strengths in it being separate, because it can kind of create this tension and sort of be like the bad guy in these types of situations. So I don't think that anything's being lost on messaging. And certainly, I mean, I just feel like I'm using my tools and my skills as best I can to fight for something that I think the people who elected me want me to do. So that's my perspective. I don't have actually a written testimony, but it's really, it's not very different from what Link is planning to speak on.
Carrie, would you mind, just in the interest of like transparency, just letting and you do, in fairness, I think you do a pretty good job of this now. Like I get a lot of emails from you, like when you let us know what you've done, like what you said, like who you met with. But could you like just keep doing that? Maybe do it a little, maybe be a little more in depth about what your messaging is and who you're messaging it to and stuff like that, just so that everybody's on the same page.
Happy to.
Yeah, great. Thanks.
I think it's very scary that somehow it's characterized the tension between Poolesville and the Fair Access Committee can be a good thing. My mind cannot wrap around that. We have to work together. We have to have one voice.
I don't mean a tension between people. I mean a tension between concepts that we're using to drive forth a goal, the ultimate goal, getting the ferry open. I mean, I think we can all agree it's been frustrating. I mean, we're almost a year out now when that ferry closed back in December. And we were all on a meeting here on New Year's Eve.
I just want to be clear, Jeff's opinion on this is that we have to work together. The one voice comes from the Fair Access Committee, and having different divergent paths, I don't think will serve Poolesville well. And everyone on this committee, where our primary goal is to serve Poolesville. So I'm going to just shut up about it. I've said what I feel. Okay, that's it.
So I'll go back to what I said earlier. I think it's very important that we come together and have just a strategy session where we can debate, we can look at those ideas, flush out the ideas, and let the best ideas move forward. So then it depersonalize it and just really look at what are the different ideas, what's the idea with anyone has, and then flush it out and say, okay, how does that help us move the ball forward? So I think that's something that should happen probably sooner rather than later.
And Ed, with regard to what you were saying to that aspect of the planning commission, just keep in mind that when we come and when Brian, with my help, brief you on everything, like that can't be a discussion of like what you think we should do.
So that should be information.
At this point, it has to be like this board will get a bite at that apple eventually.
Yeah, Martin,
but it'll be more of an informative thing. And then like if you disagree with something, that's something you'll tell us like when it's brought to this level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that for that piece is informational, because being equipped with that information, I'm better positioned to respond to questions
Absolutely.
you might ask. And then also, the more information you have, then you're able to go out and contribute or say, oh, well, hey, yes, I know they're working on X, Y, and Z. So if I'm in a Sustainable Poolesville Committee meeting and I hear these other things, then I'm able to say, well, yeah, or,
Yep.
so we go back. If you think about it like a watch, and a watch, not a new digital watch, not an Apple Watch, but a watch with many different little pieces like Jeff has on, with all the different little intricacies that all have to work together so we can be on time.
Yep.
And we have a lot of different moving parts, but all the parts really do have to work together. And so I go back to say something that's really overdue in the spirit of transparency. I think we're a little overdue on going back, looking at these priorities, going back and being able to do a fair, open, honest analysis. And maybe we could do that as a open session and just do what is necessary as an organization, as a board, that helps us to get ready to move in, because we've been at it for a year, and now we got to really say, okay, what are we going to do over these next 12 months? And
Okay.
what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what's going to be worthwhile, and at the end of the day, how do all those things equal up to adding value to the town?
Yeah, it would be nice to be able to do that. I mean, it's a good point, Ed. That'd be, instead of like doubling our efforts on things, to have those scenarios created and developed, and then we talk about them as a group. That's smart. I don't want to look back on our last several years and say we fought a bunch of good battles, but where do we move it forward?
Yeah,
That's what I want to. I hope that that's something we can focus on, because that's always positive too.
I think so. And I think that the breakfast that we had on Poolesville Day was an example of what could be accomplished, and then began to build on that type of energy and momentum.
Yeah, good point.
All right, I know we're way off agenda, but I guess we can go back. We might have some people waiting to present, I think. Is that the case?
Yeah, so next we're on new business, request for 2 additional sewer lines.
Who's
I'm going to be.
center?
I'm gonna be doing I guess I'll be doing the presentation. It's for parcel 229, which is it's that large parcel that if you go out Westerly Avenue across Fisher Avenue, there's a vacant parcel, kind of near where Jim lives, sort of. And there's one allocation there already for a tap, and the property owner is asking for 2 additional taps, which he'll subdivide. This is half-acre zoning. The front 2 lots will be one's roughly 0.7 acres. The other one is a little bit under. It's 0.66 acres, and then the rear lot is 1.95 acres. So it's a total of three lots. One's already has allocation, so you will. They're requesting 2 additional lots for that subdivision of that property. This property has been looked at a couple different ways over the years, and the Planning Commission has given a preliminary approval for this and has given the okay. And as of September 4th, the preliminary plan is in place. They're still waiting for state highway and also county stormwater management. They'd like to try to get the allocation sorted. It doesn't mean that it would go forward unless the property is subdivided, because as you know, the subdivision plans are expensive to develop, and this would be just one more piece that would be required for the subdivision to move forward. And it would be something that the property owner wants to make sure they have.
Oh, Mr. Stone, where is this located?
Okay, if you go out Westerly Avenue across Fisher Avenue, it's on the other side of Fisher Avenue, sort of near where Jim Brown lives. There's a vacant lot there. Mr. White has that big building in the back of one of his properties.
Right. So it's next door to, it's next door to where Mike White's barn
That's
is.
correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So they're going to build 3 homes there?
It'll be 3. That's correct.
3, and one already has an allocation and 2 require allocation.
See that or not?
So that will be like one long driveway and 3 homes?
It'll be actually one, 2 driveways, and then one serving the very rear lot, the one that's closest to Jim Brown's property, I'll call it that.
Yeah.
It will join into that one long lot, one long setback lot, and then a separate driveway for the other house.
John, what is again, that's how many acres is that? And what is the zoning again?
It's half-acre zoning, and it is a total of, I'm trying to find the total here.
I think it's more than 3, I think.
Oh, yeah, it's more than 3. Yeah, because they tried to get 6 houses at one time in there.
Right, that's what I'm remembering.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, whose property is this? Tom Kettler's?
No, it's not Tom Kettler's. It's actually, I'm probably going to mess his name up. It's a gentleman by the name of Krishna.
His name is Krish Bala is what his name is.
Krish Bala, there you go.
I sold him the property some time ago, but I have not been involved in any of the processes since then.
Tom Kettler is the one who's been working with the gentleman. They're going to have to put in a pressure. Actually, they came before the commissioner some time ago about a pressure sewer line along Fisher Avenue and running across on the Loon. And they had to get easements across State Highway. State Highway is granted that, but they still have to get through the entrance permitting process for the lots.
So do we vote on this? Is this something you're recommending, Mr. Stone?
Based upon the numbers that we currently have, the 2 additional lots are within the flow capabilities of our system.
So John, you need you need a motion to add.
That's correct. A motion to give the 2 additional lots to what is currently known as parcel 229.
Hey, John, you're making a recommendation that we move forward on this, or
That's correct.
any downsides that we need to consider, or nothing?
The only downsides would be is the allocation would have to stay in place for a little bit, the two. And if for some reason the subdivision doesn't go forward, then the town would have to take those 2 allocations back. It's a conditional approval of the two taps, 2 additional taps.
So then it would be written that way. This is probably where Jay comes in. It would be.
That's correct.
That we're not left
There he is.
Yeah, we should set an expiration on this because we can't have them out. And in the past, we dealt them out and collected them back. But at this point in time, since they don't have preliminary approval, because they truly don't, they need some other approvals to move forward. We should say that these allocations are granted. And I'm not talking in terms of months. I mean, John can give us a recommendation, but a year and a half, 2 years. It's just as long as there's a sunset so that they come back to us without any further action, because obviously a further action for us would be a taking back. We want it to be clear, use it or lose it. And that's what we've always had as our new policy.
Yeah.
What is a reasonable time frame for them to be able to get through the process that we could?
I would think within a year and a half they would know for sure. And at that point, the town would collect them under our scenario. They collect the money up front and they don't just hold on to it forever.
Right.
So the town collects the money and puts it in escrow, and then if the
No,
development doesn't get,
they have up to a year and a half to go ahead and they have a PIA. They've got a lot of other things they have to do. They have up to a year and a half to hold those two taps, but they're not in perpetuity.
Is there a monitoring process to make sure things are moving the right way?
Yes, sir, there is. When we receive the set of preliminary plans come in, and once everything is started, they have up to a year and a half. That's what happened with Mr. Hart's. Mr. Hart's had to come back for an extension on his preliminary plan because the year and a half he was held up by the process at Maryland State for his approval. I don't suspect you're going to have that problem here because it's probably not a drainage issue where Mr. Hart's was. They're going to be going for a entrance permit, which is different than what Mr. Hart's had. But there is a process for us to track it, and that's why Mr. Hart's had to come back in. He had submitted for his preliminary plan. They got a conditional approval. Conditional approval, one of it was State Highway had to approve it. It marched along and moved slowly. He came in and asked for a extension on his preliminary plan. If parcel 229 were to have the same issues and they didn't get it to us, we would come back to them and say, your time's up at the year and a half mark for your preliminary plan condition. And if there was no record of them working with the state or working with the county to resolve whatever the difficulties were, then we would go ahead and our recommendations would be not to extend that preliminary plan. Nobody wants to go through that. So usually a developer is going to just continue to march right along and not spend the money.
Jay, what I'm hearing then, if you have that limitation, that time limitation, it makes the whole thing clean without a lot of headaches on the back end in case things don't happen the way they're supposed to happen.
That's right. That way we don't have to come back. And I think we have two threshold things. John, make sure this is right, that they would have to get final approval and execute a PIA by a date. And then we can put the date in. And I thought, make it easy, December 1st, 2023. I mean, that's more than a year and a half, but a year and a half is the time they have to get their plan done, not necessarily the time they have to do the negotiation for a PIA. So,
hey, Jay,
Correct.
for myself and those who are watching who don't know what a PIA is, what is a PIA?
that's the public improvement agreement, where we outline all the specifics of what they have to do and what we have to do to make the actual construction happen.
All right.
Does a water tap include also the sewer connection?
Yes, it does. Yeah, it's an allocation for water and sewer. The town doesn't allow septic fields. So you automatically, when you apply for a allocation, you're granted the allocation for the water and the sewer.
Okay, all right. So the use it or lose it date is December the 1st, 2023?
I wouldn't call it use it or lose it. I'd say use it and then potentially lose it, but at least review it.
So what'll happen, just to let you know, let's assume that he goes ahead and subdivides the property. The fees will be paid up front for that subdivision of that property. The tap, they would have to go ahead and build the infrastructure to serve both the one lot and the two additional lots that he's requesting. And the taps would have to be run to the property line. The water and the sewer taps would be placed at the property line. Now, whether they actually build those two homes at that time, that may or may not happen.
And we, as the provider, don't care, because we have 2 taps that are not paid for. And as soon as they subdivide it, we have to associate taps with them because somebody can buy an unimproved lot and be expected to build without any other government interference. So we are really looking at saying, when I say final approval, that would mean that their subdivision happened. So they take 1 lot and now it's 3 lots. And so they'd have to have that happen in the PIA. I picked December 1st just because it's the end of the calendar year and we usually keep track of things on a calendar basis.
So does anyone want to make that motion?
Mr. Strong, has this already been promised?
No, no, I don't have the right to do that. Neither does.
Okay, no,
Neither
just
does the
wondering.
planning commission. Neither does the planning commission. That allocation is up to the commissioners.
Oh, okay, all right.
Or does anyone want to entertain a different motion?
I want to say up front that the questions I asked for were for clarity purposes, but because the property borders my property as well as I help Mr. Bala buy the property, I have not advised him since, and but I am going to abstain from the vote.
Well, basically, if we, this is maybe a question, if somehow those taps are not allocated to that property plummets in value, is that correct?
It does that, but it would eventually stop him from subdividing. So I guess when you look at what is your alternative of doing this tonight, you cannot do it tonight and do it at a future meeting because he is not ready for that to happen. But at some point in time, he will be unable to subdivide the property because he cannot do that without water allocation.
Oh, otherwise he'd have to have one big lot because he has one tap allocated.
As it sits right now, right?
I see.
And
Okay.
your planning commission has already kind of pushed him through the process to say they're okay with the subdivision. So
Oh.
it's not necessarily promised because this is a hurdle that has to be attained, but it's a question of, are you doing this now to give him a guarantee, which is what this would do, so he knows I can move ahead, take some business risk to do this, or do you say, well, we're not going to do this now, come see us when you get closer?
And
I have a question. I have a question for you, Jay. Sorry to interrupt, Ed. Go ahead.
I was just going, John, what's your recommendation?
Well, our recommendation was based upon the plan and the approvals of the planning commission is to go ahead and grant the allocation with a timeline for it to expire because it's a contingency of the property. If they're unable to, for instance, they're unable to get everything else done that the planning commission expects them to get done, then the plan dies on the vine. The other thing is that the planning commission was in receipt of our August 4th letter, and on number 8, and Martin's aware of this, number 8, one of the things was water sewer allocation will need to be dedicated for the 2 lots. It's a contingency of the approval of the plan. So right now they're marching forward, but they don't want to march any further because they don't want to take the business risk of they spend all the money to build. We've got everything's done except for the allocation, and then the planning then you all say no, you can't have the allocation. Well, then they've spent a lot of money to something that they can't complete.
Right now, it's a timing issue because they do not have preliminary approval, because I think John said it was stormwater and SHA. But
Right.
when those are received by the developer and us saying, yep, those are approved, meaning preliminary approval is final because it's not conditioned anymore, now they'll be stuck. They won't be able to get final approval without the allocation. So right now you can say, well, we're just not comfortable with the timing. We want to think about it. But once they receive preliminary approval, you have to have more than just time as a rationale why you're not doing it, because that's what we do, is allocate people who are ready to build.
Martin, what do you think about this?
Well, if my memory serves me, on the planning commission level, we recommended it.
That's correct.
So I hesitate to make a motion because I'm on the planning commission, but you know, we discussed it and I think it was a unanimous vote, if I recall correctly.
That's correct. You all
that
like
that we approve it. So those are my thoughts.
I think I got an understanding of it. So I would motion that we would do the allocation with the conditions and timeline that has been mentioned at our discussion, that timeline of December 1st.
Okay.
23.
Is there someone who will second my motion?
Could you repeat it again, Ed, please? Sorry.
So I motion that we would allocate provide the allocation, the two taps as presented by Mr. Strong with the timelines that Jay has recommended December 1st with the conditions that have already been mentioned.
Okay, I want to second Ed's motion.
Great, thank you. We have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then Jim, you're abstaining.
Abstain. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
So the last thing on our agenda is a proposal. I think it's a rough proposal from Mr. Terrio, and I will bring him in. Hopefully he's still there.
I'm not turning this on.
Dave and Sandy, are either of you there?
David is.
I can hear you, just can't see you, but
Well, oh, okay.
Oh, I hear Sandy too. Well, we hear you both.
Here.
Here's our video. All right. Hello.
Hi.
Ah, there they are. All right, well, you are on our agenda next. Do you guys want to go ahead and tell us about your
I
proposal?
wanted to thank you guys for letting me come on. I think the purpose of me being on or wanting to be on was to try to clarify my thoughts over the conversations that maybe I have started over the thrift shop, and make sure that you get my ideas directly from me so that there's no, there's no problems up the road. For the past year or so, I've noticed that the town has really come alive and started to revitalize itself from the center on, not so much the west side of the center, but from its core. Like, the families are coming out, the people are jaywalking and getting out there and using the town. And I think it's a great energy that has begun. I think with the talk about this thrift shop, there's another opportunity to continue the energy and to continue the revitalizing of the downtown area. My idea, and it's not the only idea out there, but my idea would be to create a nonprofit entity that would then build and renovate a art center, a performance art center and a visual art center, so that artists could come together and make art, perform for the public. The community could enter and join in on this. But I just think it's a way to preserve this heritage spot, this little building in the middle of town, and keep it open to the public so that it can continue to be a landmark. So, I don't know if you guys have other questions about, or if you have any desire to even do something with the thrift shop, but
David, I've spoken with Randy Davis like many times. And maybe you could just discuss collaborating with Randy on his concept of using the facility not only as an art center, as you just described, but also Randy's notion of the telegraph history and the connection of that historic property with Civil War and whatnot. And I'm sure you've had this conversation with Randy yourself.
Well, in my idea, I mean, it's a very broad idea, but it is really to elevate the town in the eyes of the whole community and Montgomery County. You know, it's a way to emphasize the work that's done around the river and the ag reserve, both in arts and in history. So, you know, it is not a big stretch to call historians' reenactments or whatever art. It's not a big stretch. And I think we would be open to that discussion, you know, although it would be a non-profit entity. So it would be run by a board. It wouldn't be up to me to collaborate with Randy. It would be the mission statement and that to formalize any kind of idea.
David, thanks for being here. I'll give you my 2 cents on this whole thing. In my mind, you and Sandy get a huge amount of leeway because what you've done with locals has like been just a huge, I mean, I can't emphasize it enough, service for the community. I think you've helped bring people together, people are walking up there to see you. I mean, like, you don't want to toot your own horn, but one of the reasons that Poolesville is starting to become revitalized is largely due to you guys opening locals. So in my mind, you guys get a lot of leeway for that. You also come to the table, as I understand it, with the financial means to actually do something. And I love the idea. I don't know that you can have two things. I don't know that you can have like a museum and what you're doing. And without hearing, a specific proposal for the museum, I like your idea better at this point. I think it's more viable. I think a museum, people maybe come once, but they probably don't come back for years and years and years. But you're talking about something people could conceivably come monthly, weekly, and bring people from out of town. Hang on, let me finish. And as we've talked about personally or privately rather, the only thing that my only concern is that whatever we do, I would like to have the town reserve the right to like take that property back if you lose interest, if you move away or whatever. So I don't know if that's something we write into a contract with the sale or if we like lease it to you for a very reasonable price or how that works. But I don't want that beautiful old church or thrift store or whatever to fall into the wrong hands once you're done with it, if you're done with it. So that would be my only thing that I would suggest to this board is like we figure out a way that first right of refusal, whatever, first opportunity to buy it back, something like that. But I love your idea. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate what you've done with locals. I think it's very intriguing, and I think you've shown this town and this board that you have a vision. We all sat there and heard you like going on and on about locals, and half of us probably thought you were crazy. But lo and behold, there it is, and it's great, and it's an asset. So kudos to you both.
Well, as far as Randy's thoughts and the museum thought is, I agree with you that a museum itself could not sustain itself and could not be open to the public or interesting to the public to generate the energy that you would want to create down there. I think, in combination with my idea in the arts, and having events for them from time to time can, and, also offering, rooms for meetings or whatever. It's not a community center by any means. It's for artists to create and to energize, the area, but to also allow the community to come in and experience this. The building itself, it has to be saved. It has to be renovated exactly the way it was and it has to be shown off as an old building, an old MCA, an old whatever, all the things that it was. And I think you can give ode to that without any problem. But I think to sustain itself, it has to generate money, and it has to have shows and have the community come around it and keep it going. So, that way it's somehow better than a museum. As far as having the money and willingness to do it, we're fully ready to hit the ground running. I mean, we have already talked to a builder, had him look at the site, make sure it wasn't going to fall down. We've hired a director for the nonprofit. We began the process of the 501c application. All of this is just, legwork that needs to be done ahead of time. But,
Let me just clarify. The nonprofit we're creating doesn't require this space. Just, it's not like, we're expecting to use this space. There's something we would like to create anyway. Doesn't have to have a space yet. So that's why we've taken those steps. The builder will, yes, that was just to make sure the building, was a good consideration, good thing to consider. Just throwing that out there.
that answer all your questions.
Well, I got more. Just in terms of the heritage and the history of the place and the stories to be told about it, including and in particular that telegraph story or whatever. I love that. And I just think that the building, this is why you save the building. You're saving the building and its stories. And we will tell those stories in various ways. For example, those cool pieces of tombstones, gravestones that are, on the property now, like that's, that's not going anywhere, I mean, then there's this really silly, crazy tombstone inside on the stage, as it were.
I can't go anywhere.
Well, whatever. We'll figure out what to do with it. What the heck happened in this building? Then we find a picture of, and it's a YMCA. I never heard that one before. It just can't wait to uncover the stories. But that's the beauty. That's that is Poolesville, full of stories and people and things coming and going. And so, we would absolutely retain that.
But just past one thing.
You're right. I wouldn't want that to fall into the hands of somebody that may sell it at a later end or whatever. And I would probably in a proposal write that the town would have first right of refusal if we failed or if we had decided we were tired and wanted to move on.
Hey, just real quick, because I'm listening to the idea and I really like the idea of what you shared. And then I'm also, I think about what Randy had came and spoke to us about the telegraph and just some of the richness in the history and how important that is. And it made me think about the Bolger Center over there in Potomac. Have you ever had a chance to go to the Bolger Center?
I don't think so.
You can go online and look around, but the Bolger Center is some old antique post office exhibits are there at the Bolger Center. And so it's a larger scale project than what you're talking about here, but that concept of being able to have a place where there is some events, and just Google it, Bolger Center, Potomac, Maryland.
Right.
Check it out. And you could even see some old equipment, old stuff. And I think about what Randy's talking about, because outside of the telegraph in the stories,
right.
So with the telegraph, there's really not much more to it, unless I'm wrong. But so if there was a way to merge those ideas, those concepts, where there was a space to display some type of telegraph or replica of a telegraph, and give honor and respect to the work that Randy shared, that with how important that telegraph was to the Civil War. And at the same time, you have the tombstones, you have the place where you mentioned you use the word reenactment. But you can really, when you talk about that energy and then bringing people into that heart of town.
Mhm.
And as a nonprofit, you could connect. The seniors could share different stories. I think about Chuck Copeland talking about the Big Woods stories and that kind of thing. I think about some of our young people, our young actors and actresses and poets having a platform where that's reasonably priced, where they could come and perform. And so it's a win-win for everybody. So I mean, I love the idea. I just
Well,
like
I think it plays in the same thing as it's just getting recognition throughout the county that Poolesville is here. It's sort of having an art center would be similar to Black Rock at Germantown or Stratmore at Rockville. You know, it would get our name out there. It would let us become a destination, a word that's said, you know.
with a Poolesville flair, because I think that Strathmore has its own flair. The Black Rock
Right.
has its own swag. But I think being able to do something with Poolesville with its own piece and capturing some of that history,
Absolutely.
bring people out here.
Absolutely.
So what is the next step? Do you have any ideas, David, of the next
Well,
step?
I think the next step would be to ask you guys to make sure that that is something that you would be interested in, and I would come up with a proposal that hopefully you would say, yeah, that's exactly what we want, and we start putting nails in the wall.
Yeah, what's the timeline for that proposal?
It can be very quick, I'm sure. You know, I don't know what a proposal to the town looks like. I mean, is it a written statement? Is it a? Can I just make this?
Yes.
Well, I for one absolutely love your ideas, David, and I second what Martin said about you bringing energy to that part of the town. Yeah, it's just fantastic to see all the people there and those umbrellas up on the weekends and the cars parked and whatnot.
And
And
I
the people,
could
even the people
see-
jaywalking. Yeah,
It's a good problem to have.
indeed. It's fantastic. So thank you and Sandy for that. So yeah, I look forward to your proposal, and from what you said tonight, I'm 1,000,000% in favor.
Thank you. Thanks.
John, do you want to share your connection to that piece of history?
Well, it's my wife's connection, actually. Her great-great-grandparents were married in that church.
Oh my God.
Wow. Do you know what year that might have been?
I want to say it was probably around 1848, 1852,
Wow.
somewhere in there.
Oh, wow, great.
Are there any photos?
Yeah, your photos?
I'm looking for photos for the
Yeah.
interior.
It would be nice
Oh,
if we did, but no.
Okay.
Drawings, sketches?
I can fill you in when we sit down. We can talk about it.
Oh yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
David, you know how I feel. I think it's a great idea. And so I support you giving us a proposal. I'd like to see a proposal. Obviously no promises, but but very interested and very grateful. Also, one side note, please don't close this weekend for the winter.
We're only closing so that we can reopen inside.
Okay.
I think the work is scheduled to be done by the end of December, and so we want to concentrate on getting inside, you know.
Very cool.
Really putting that kitchen together.
It's because it's cold out.
And it's cold.
It is cold
I don't
out.
wanna be
Yes, it is.
outside.
I count the ones. My hands are frozen. It can change.
Well, thanks, you guys. I think you're definitely getting a lot of support here, and
Right.
we'll look forward to seeing something on a piece of paper.
On paper, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Is it?
That is generally how
let
these
me
things
just before you go, David. Let me just clarify: are there any commissioners that have any concerns or that don't want to see something like this move forward? Just to give them clarity.
I have not heard.
No, he's
Oh.
asking the other
I
commissioner.
thought he was asking me if I had heard anything.
No, just
No,
sort of.
As I mentioned before, I love the idea. Absolutely.
Great. Okay, good. That's all. Thanks again, guys. Thanks for being here.
All right.
Thank you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thanks.
We don't have our town manager with us tonight, so we don't have a town manager report.
Could I pass along a couple things on the engineering side?
Please do.
Okay, just real quick, we have out to bid right now for the I&I projects. We received one bid in today, one project, which is the manhole 5 and 6 repairs. So far looks okay. The other ones are out. We'll see how those go. We have 2 more on the books to go, but I wanted to see where those prices landed before we went ahead and put those out on the street. The Helmus restroom project is with the county right now. Those plans we'll wait for approval, and then once we get that, then we can go out to bid. Wells 414, as you know, that contract has been executed. I'm waiting for the contractor to start his submittals of materials. The wastewater plant denitrification filter system, we do expect that to go out to bid in December with recommendations for award in January, and then from that it goes up to Maryland State for them to ratify it and go ahead and go forward with the grant for that project. The other thing that we got some really good news for, as you know, the town has a tariff system with the street lights for changing over to LEDs. And one of the problems that we've always had before with the power company was that we would have to change a lot of things around in order to make it work and make it so that we would be able to do that. That's been discussed with the power company. And as you know, we have a grant for that as a part of a larger study. But the power company now has said, well, they're your lights, your system, so you can change out to LED lights and save lots of energy without having to go through and changing meters and a whole bunch of other things that were going to be cost prohibitive to do. So that's moving forward very rapidly. We expect, working with the energy not company, the ones that are doing the study, we expect to have that information ready to roll out probably, I guess, is January timeframe. And then from there, there are additional grants that become available. This will save the town a lot of money converting over to LED lights over time. So
Great.
Okay.
Thanks for your work on that, John. That's excellent.
Sure.
What was you mentioned the well?
Well, 414. That's the one that's over in the Westerly Grove subdivision.
Yeah. And that's going to come online or be?
It will be online eventually. It's just we're in the process of getting ready to build the well house to pump the water over to it. There is one other thing that the playground is moving forward. They do have a little issue with the parking lot at the present time that hopefully they'll get resolved with Montgomery County. And then there's also a sewage pump station. The old Oxley Farm pump station is being decommissioned. And right now we're waiting for First Energy to come out and make the electrical connections. We expect that to probably happen in December timeframe.
Mr. Strong, do you have any update on the water tower painting?
No, we haven't gone back out to bid yet. We're still waiting. We went out to bid once on it, but the problem, like many things at the present time, is the supply chain. And the cost were being driven, and also scheduling was going to be a problem. I suspect it'll probably happen either this spring, summer timeframe or fall timeframe of 22.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Oh, I had another question, Mr. Strong.
Yes.
At the last meeting, when we had that very excellent report by, I think it was Miss Mim on the water.
Mhm.
And there was one recommendation I recall, and that was that the town of Poolesville should add an additional well. It wasn't necessarily to add capacity to our existing system, because apparently the capacity is already there to accommodate the maximum month of 100-degree temperature, the population growth to 6,500, and something else. So so anyway, then it wasn't so much to add capacity; it was to add redundancy in case
Additional redundancy.
one of the wells that had the great capacity was out for maintenance or in some way was out of service. Is that something that you're going to look into?
I haven't been tasked with that yet. We do have, just as a reminder, we have a well 15 that was drilled some time ago up off of Cattail Road, but the infrastructure is not there at the present time to service that well. We have been requested to pursue finding new well sites, and there's a whole long process that it goes through in order to find a new location for a well.
Okay, and I just, that was that report was excellent and very thorough, and that was a recommendation made by the person that we hired to do that study. So it seems to me that we should take that recommendation seriously.
Well, the process will be, just to let you know, for locating the well, we would probably go back to a person like Kathy Mim, who's familiar with the layout of how the wells run within the town, and ask them to go ahead and make a decision of a location to go ahead and do a test well. These test wells, they're basically what you're doing is drilling a full-size municipal well in order to determine whether you can, what your pumping rates are going to be for that particular well. So first you got to find a location for it, which the town, when it was done in 2000, they had to enter into agreements with property owners in order to stake out a place to drill those wells. Then they went ahead and did test drill. For instance, the one at well 11 was done extremely deep. That one was, I think, total, they tried to go to almost 1,100 feet on that. But the fracture, if I recall correctly, and I could be incorrect on the exact location of where the major fracture was, it was at about 500 feet. So they did a lot of drilling, and it is what it is. They didn't encounter anything more.
Not to belabor these points, but the well 15, apparently that's not connected to the system. Is there a plan in place to?
There's no infrastructure out there at the present time. No.
So although it's there, it's essentially unusable?
Well, it's not unusable. It's just a plan has to be developed. Also, the expense for running the lines have to be incorporated. Typically, the way if you get away from the existing subdivisions of the time when the borings were done, such as Stony Springs, we had the developers do a lot of the groundwork in order to go ahead and bring that in as a functioning well. Same thing with Brightwell, which one is down off of Jerusalem Road. down in the park. That was done by Kettler. Now the town reimbursed developers to do that work, but the upfront development process was working with the developers. That's one of the ways that the town in the past has done that. There were a series of wells that were before my time that were already in place, such as over in Hunter's Run. Wesman has one. The area off of the west of the town, there were a series of wells that were in place. A couple of the wells have been abandoned since then due to issues with the wells. One of them was well number 10. It was drilled back in I want to say it was probably around 2000.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for those explanations.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks for that, John.
You're welcome.
Is there anything else, Carrie?
I think unless we have any other questions for John, that's all we have this evening.
All right, I'll make a motion. We adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everybody.
Okay,
Aye.
you too.